Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 102 of the Podcana podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about some new decks that have been built within Set A. I know Set A isn't here yet, but it's just around the corner with the Reign of Jafar pre-release starting next weekend. So we figured we wanted to kind of jump in and explore some different deck ideas that maybe some of you guys can try out within the first week of Reign of Jafar releasing. So yeah, this is going to be a mixture of myself and Moyen have been talking about some deck ideas. We're also going to be talking about some deck ideas that we've seen already and maybe exploring how certain combos may work in them, or just a general idea behind some of these new types of decks. And then maybe just talk about a specific card or two to see maybe if there'll be some new cool like build around pieces, stuff like that. So before we get into it, Moyen, I'm going to just ask the usual. How are you? How's your week been?
Pretty good. I'm definitely looking forward to UK Games Expo and getting to meet some people next event.
For sure, yeah. Like next weekend is UK Games Expo, and it's going to be like a nice way to round off Set 7. And yeah, I'm excited to jump into Set as well and get to do some sealed gameplay. I have had a very, very busy week. I've been trying to organize all my paperwork and everything for moving over to Berlin, Germany. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who congratulated me on the job. It's been really, really nice to see all of the positive comments, and yeah, I'm excited to start my new role at Card Market and get to explore, like I said, other games besides just Lorcana. So it's gonna be really, really cool. Also, everybody, be sure to comment down below. It was Moyen's birthday a few days ago, so he won't say it on the podcast, but everybody say late happy birthday to Moyen. Yeah, I mean, why not? Like, what did you do to celebrate your birthday, Moyen? Did you have a good time?
Sure. Yeah, the birthday was great. We went to like an arcade football place with my girlfriend. I sent you a clip earlier. Maybe
I'll play it. I'll put it in. Yeah.
And that was super fun. It was much more exhausting than I expected. And then after that, we went to like a board games cafe, played for 5 hours, and didn't even get to finish.
Oh, you didn't finish the one board game? What?
Yeah, I taught her like the Slay the Spire board game.
Sure.
And we finished like 2/3 of it. And we could have maybe almost finished the third act, but it was would have been very, very close, because after that we had booked like a table at a restaurant, got back home, had a birthday cake, so she treated me well.
Sure, awesome. Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, so before we jump into talking about these specific decks, we're going to be going into our Spilled Ink section. This is our listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. The first one is from Annika. She says, congrats, Kawa. Can't wait to talk about decks over a coffee in the office. So yeah, this is Annika. This is going to be one of my colleagues over at Card Market. I first met Annika and one of my other soon-to-be colleagues, Taylor, at, I think it was the Bochum DLC. And then I also met them at the Birmingham DLC as well. So even before I even considered applying for Card Market, it makes me, I don't know, made me feel good to see that they were interested in Lorcana, especially in the earlier stages of the game growing and stuff like that. So, you know, it's important to me, at least, to join a company that like actually really cares about the card game. You know, with Card Market, you could be like, oh, there's so many games. Do they really have people that like, you know, play each of them all the time? And it's like, yes, they most definitely do. So I'm excited to just talk more Lorcana with some new people. So thank you so much. Next one's from Josh. Again, congratulate me on the new job. I appreciate it, my friend. The next one is from Gabriel. They said, I played Amber Sapphire in my first set champs of the season last weekend. I made top 4 with it and had a decent chance for top 2 before seeding and bad draws my top 4 match. Amber Sapphire, at least my build, doesn't use Tipo or Sail. It isn't a ramp-based Sapphire deck. It is a mid-aggro deck that plays on curve. Ludwig seems to be looks to be a great help for the deck with the Steel Song and Blurple matchup. I think that's very, very fair. I think when you say like this mid-grow deck that kind of plays on curve, I'm guessing this is akin, like I haven't really seen Amber Sapphire aggro, to be honest, since like I know oh my god, I'm trying to think of the, I don't know why his name isn't coming to me. You know the guy who won, it was DLC Bochum. You know the winner? He played Ruby Amethyst from France. You played him in your European Continentals tournament. Yeah. I can't even say his name. Teo Time, right? Yeah, Teo Time. He played like an Amber Sapphire version during, I think, the first LCCC. And that was very much like, like you play your daisies, you play like the Amber Moana, you play Alice, you play like all of these very kind of aggressive on-curve cards. And the deck was like, it performed well. I do personally think right now, if you want to play Amber Sapphire in this meta, that's like the best way to play the deck, the way that this commenter is describing, right? Like kind of a mid-range / aggro deck, but probably more of just like an aggro curve deck. Would you agree that that's probably the best version of the deck that exists at the moment? And I mean, we'll be talking about a different version within this video actually, but yeah, just your thoughts on Amber Sapphire in general at the moment, and do you think that's the most optimal way to play it in the current meta?
Yeah, it might be, but that doesn't say a lot, as like one of the by far weakest color combinations we've had since the game came out. Probably it's the best way to play it. You could also play it like with Singer Force, seeing how far it goes into like Surfer Stitch, Wreck-It Ralph type of thing with Rapunzels. I think that's probably the version of the deck that I would like better, but if you want to win, maybe just stay away from the ink combination.
Sure.
At least in the first 7 sets.
Sure. The next comment is from Millsy Bob. They say, one for Spilled Ink, based on the UK Games Expo you guys were talking about. I attended the UK Games Expo last year, playing all 3 events across all 3 days and topping all 3 days as well. I've been to the expo previously for other card games I used to play, and I've always enjoyed my time there. However, when I found out they were planning on making it a best of 2 format, I cancelled my plans and decided not to attend. I truly detest the best of 2 format, and I'll begrudgingly play the format at DLCs, but I don't understand why this kind of smaller event would make the choice to be run as best of 2. So I suppose my question is, would you guys enjoy the event more as best of 3? And then to add on to this question, would you enjoy DLCs more as a best of 3? So myself and Moyen actually are recently off the back of playing a pretty major event, 800 plus players for Star Wars Unlimited, and that was a best of 3 format. And I don't know, we were just talking about it and saying like, oh yeah, like some of the advantages, some of the disadvantages, the differences we felt, after playing all of these this past season of DLCs. And my conclusion towards the end of it was, this was probably only into a few rounds. I think I remember coming over and saying to you, Moyen, I was like, I kind of wish this was best of 2 format, because and this is for a lot of different reasons. That okay, I might let you speak about it first, and I might give some kind of concluding points, but the main one being, because you can speak about this, is going to time, right? And going to time, sure, it happens mainly if it's like a control deck and a control deck, right? With other decks, most of the time you play best of 3, it's not really going to go that long. But there's definitely other reasons why I personally prefer best of 2, but I'll pass it over to you to hear your general thoughts on this.
Yes, personally, it's not like I don't enjoy best of 3. I think the format's mostly fine too. But I actually prefer 2-round format to best of 3 quite a bit. I think there's like the biggest reasons or advantages that I see in 2-round format would be like that more of the time of the tournament is actually being spent playing the game, because everyone's playing the same amount of games per round, which means you don't have to wait after playing 2 games, like after going 2-0 in best of 3, and then wait for a long round where they have to play 3 games. And then, okay, some of the time, like, or usually in best of 3, it's not even like 50% more time in comparison to the 2-round format, which also means like less time is allocated per game, which leads to time troubles more often. And on top of that, if it ever goes into time trouble, then players will always be incentivized to play faster or play slower, depending on the situation that they're in. And yes, there's rules against slow playing, but I think that they are very difficult to enforce unless it's egregious slow playing, which then leaves this gray area where people will be kind of like asked, okay, how slow can I play without it being slow play? Do I just play fast anyways, but then kind of like rush to my loss? So that's like probably what I like the least about best of 3. I can get some of the arguments for best of 3. When I was playing the Star Wars tournament, I liked that I felt like if I'm playing better than my opponent, I will probably get out of this with a win, even if I lose the die roll. Okay, in Star Wars, it seemed like there was quite a big skill gap, and it seemed difficult to lose 2 out of 3 games if you are significantly better than your opponent. Right, that's the other thing I didn't even mention, which is I don't want to lose a round just because I lose the die roll and the matchup's very difficult to win on the draw. It's like I don't want a die roll that's to like kind of determine my chances too much. So that's something I really, really like in 2-1 format. In 2-1 format, the bonus point I don't really think adds anything. I don't think it makes sense. I think I think the biggest reason it exists is because it kind of makes the cut a little bit cleaner. Because at least that's the argument I've heard a lot, which is like, okay, it's not so many people bubbling out based on tiebreakers, but even that doesn't really make sense to me, because this is kind of just like an inbuilt tiebreaker, this extra 1 point that's even like too heavily weighted and sometimes like overcomes an entire game win, which I don't think should ever happen, just based on I don't think you should be rewarded that heavily for going 2-0 and 0-2 a few times in comparison to the person that went 1-1-1-1 a few times. So that's definitely something I don't like about 2-1 format. And then, okay, regarding what you had mentioned, I was playing a pretty slow control deck, and sometimes I got into time trouble against like mid-rangey decks where I won 2-0, but I knew if I wouldn't have won my second game, game 3 would have been a challenge or like almost impossible to finish. I finished one of my control mirrors, but like that game, both of us played. I mean, I was still pretty new to the game. I was playing as fast as I could, right? But was still probably I could have played faster. But we were both playing super fast, and if my opponent just plays like slightly slower as soon as they realize I'm the one that's kind of more likely to win the game, that's more in control of the tempo and resources, I don't finish that game. But they didn't, and so because they didn't, it almost felt like, oh, best of 3 is fine, right? But best of 3 is still what enabled the situation where my opponent was put in this position where if they play fast, they lose, or they probably lose. If they play slow, they probably get out with a tie, but then all they have to do is like stall the game, which is not really, I think, the experience you want at a tournament. And then, so the final round, it was my win and in for top cut, and I face a control mirror. And that was the funniest thing. We both played as fast as we could. Game 1, I lose because my deck's empty, and in that game you take like 3 damage per draw that you don't really have a card to draw for. So like I slowly die in fatigue, and I'm like, okay, I need to concede so I can have a chance to finish game 2. Game 2, we also both deck out, and before anyone dies to fatigue, or to like being mild decked out, before that even happens, time runs out. And so I lost that round 1-0. But I think I was losing that game anyways, and even if I won that, it would have just put both of us out of contention, which isn't a reason for me to not try to win that game. I'm like, I always think you should always kind of like just try to win no matter what. But yeah, that's so yeah, in total that tournament kind of reminded me of how good it feels to kind of know if you're significantly better than your opponent. In 3 games, probably you win 2, and it's not just you lose 1 game on the draw and you're like, oh, I'm already only taking a draw from this match. Like there was some stuff that I liked, or that I realized 2-1 format doesn't have, but overall it also reminded me of all the flaws that best of 3 has. And personally, I much prefer 2-1 format, and I think it's much more time efficient in trying to determine the best player of the tournament.
Sure, yeah. And again, this is outside of the player perspective as well, and I've mentioned this a lot as well. 2-game format allows like logistically for a lot as well. And I don't think that's like a sole reason why you should opt for format. Oh, just because it benefits. But if the format has advantages and it's also helps logistically, then I can also see a reason why. Because think about it, like if you actually, in all honesty, for what we're going to, right? We're going to the UK Games Expo, which is a board game convention. if anything, 2-game format's better because it's going to be, you know, okay, this is going to sound maybe a bit weird. We're going to this to play Lorcana because I want to play the Lorcana event, right? But both you and me were like, right, it's an appropriate amount of time to play Lorcana, but you're also trying to fit, it's a lot of players in one day. So 2-game format, you'll get it done as swiftly and as efficiently as possible. And again, when I'm saying this, I'm not saying the idea of, right, get this done, we don't even care, just like do the tournament, throw the players out, we're done. Like, it will still determine, like, the outcome will determine like really, really good players, but we will also have time to like do other stuff. And I honestly think for an event like this, it is important. It's you're going to this convention, sure, we're going to play Lorcana, but like I also want to do other stuff at the event. So, and you're trying to fit all of this within one day. For me as well, I agree with the point that it sometimes feels a little bit worse that, let's say I'm against a newer player that, in my opinion, I clearly think is, you know, maybe not as experienced as me. I think that I should be coming out on top on this match because I've maybe, you know, have more experience playing the game. I understand the decks better. And they kind of take a game off me because I lose the die roll and they're, you know, they just pop off. I don't get my draws, whatever. That can happen in 2-game format. And sure, at times that can feel bad. And in best of 3, maybe you can make it up in the next 2 games and win out overall. However, the general conception that if you do tie, most people, right? I would have to assume that most people think that if you tie and you go 1-1, it doesn't feel nearly as bad than if you tie in best of 3, right? If you tie, and I know like you're not really tying, like one player wins and the other player wins, so it's not a tie. But that idea of, okay, if we both gone 1-1, it never feels as bad as if you just lose. And if you get 0-2, sure that's tough. But you can kind of 1-1 your way a lot in tournaments. If you get a few 0-2s, it feels tough. So I don't know, like having that kind of middle ground and having that idea of going 1-1 and knowing I have like 8-9 rounds to get this certain score of what it's usually like, you know, 4 ties and 5 wins, I think, Moyen, usually for these kind of events, if it's 9 rounds. I don't know, in my mind, that just from a player perspective kind of seems a bit more, I don't even know, is achievable the word? Because like you look at something like a 7-2, you know, you need to get 7 wins and 2 losses. When you just look at that and hear that, it's like, wow, that seems like a lot. And maybe this is just like a mentality thing for me, but yeah, I just like the idea that, okay, if I'm taking a 1-1, if we both tie these games, I win one game, my opponent wins another game, it just doesn't impact me as bad mentally. Then I feel like I'm still like, I can keep going and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe that's more of a personal reason. But on top of everything that we mentioned already, like generally I'm a fan of best of 2. But just because we're saying we're a fan of best of 2, it doesn't mean, like you said, it doesn't mean that we don't like best of 3. But yeah, I don't think like just because there's I don't think, oh, just because this event isn't best of 3, I refuse to play it. And if that's that's your opinion, that's completely fine. But for me, I'll play both because I can see the advantages and disadvantages of both, and I don't mind playing either, you know?
Yeah, it's, I mean, while there's one format I guess you also prefer, I don't hate playing best of 3. I can completely live with it. What did you say for DLC score? Did you say 405 or 504?
It's 5 wins, right? 5 wins and then like 4 draws, right? Yeah. That makes sense.
Yep. 504 was like 47, which was completely safe.
Yep.
And then I think something like 405 was like safe-ish in some DLCs, but
sure,
definitely
not
on others.
Yeah, not on the Birmingham 65th, right? Yeah. The next comment is from Ron the Proton. They say, how did you guys not mention It Means No Worries? Moy, do you want to read out the card It Means No Worries for the viewers?
Sure. It Means No Worries is an uninkable Amber 9-cost song. That's a sing together song, and it says return up to 3 characters from your discard to your hand. You pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn. So provides 3 cards. It lets you somewhat choose what 3 cards those are, right? There's the condition of they have to already be in your discard, and they have to be characters, but I guess there's some choice in that, and you can have a 2 ink reduction. Personally, I think that doesn't quite make up for being an uninkable 9-cost sing together song. I do think at that point you need a lot more than that to really make up for the cost.
Sure, I think I agree. I could kind of see this card in a very, very, like... You can see this card, like, imagine a super slow control meta where, like, Amber plus something, and, like, you know, you're both playing a similar type of deck, and this is, like, a pure value generation card. But when is Lorcana ever that slow? And also, so far, when has Amber realistically been paired with a color combination to have a meaningful control deck? Like, the best example, honestly, is probably Amber Emerald, because that's, like, a type of control / disruption deck, right? But even
controls your hand.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But then even on that deck, it's like this still seems like it's quite unnecessary, honestly. Again, honestly, like maybe a one-of on that deck could like fit in okay, but I still personally wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely throwing this in my deck. I only see this card really working in like a super slow Amber kind of control-y meta. But maybe people will prove us wrong. Honestly, like when we speak badly about cards, at times I want people to prove us wrong. Like I don't want to say that all of these cards are bad, right? If someone comes along and this makes a meta deck, I'll be like, yo, I put my hands up. I said the card was bad and I made a mistake, right?
And at the end of the day, a lot of this will just be our subjective opinions on these things, and it's impossible to know everything, how all the decks and metas will develop. But
true.
Yeah. It's, at least first impression, it seems quite expensive.
Yep. The next comment is from Parker. And the reason I included this was because last week we talked about the Blurple song. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's the one that puts the an exerted card into the opponent's inkwell, right?
Yes. 3-cost Inkable song, whatever it's called.
Sure. I'm going to call it that now, whatever it's called. So Parker says, I won my set champs thanks to my opponent, Hades. Oh my god, I can't even say this. Thanks to my opponent playing Hades onto my Shifted Diablo and ramping me 2 cards. Love that you guys talked about that interaction because it definitely lost him the game. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about ideas of how that card can be really, really good. Like maybe in the early game for some type of removal. I was like, oh yeah, this, originally in my mind, I was like, oh, this is so good against Diablo. And I was like, oh no, wait, this would be terrible against Diablo because you're just ramping your opponent too. So I just found this comment funny because we were like, yeah, that's like so niche that'll like never come up my opponent. And then this person's like, no, it pretty much lost my opponent the game. Yeah. So
yeah, and it's I mean, yeah, we talked about last episode a little bit, but sometimes if it's your own, or there was some metas where if it was your only out to Diablo was to give them 2 ink, that was often the correct thing to do because that, like, especially Bucky, Diablo, Emerald Steel, like, they didn't do that much with 2 extra ink, but they did a lot if they got, like, the extra cards.
Sure.
So sometimes you really, really had to do it.
Yep. The last comment is from Jamal. They say, people talk a lot about the removal that's going to be leaving the format, but how do you feel about the draw engines leaving with rotation? The best draw engines were sets 1 to 4, and we haven't really seen good competitors since. What are your thoughts on this, Moyen?
Yeah, I think this is very, very important, interesting question, right? It's okay, yes, playing threats, playing removal, that's one of the back and forths in TCGs, but if we don't have enough cards in hand, I think personally that takes away a lot of the agency and from the player, because if you don't have options, then you will kind of be forced into some of your plays without too much decision making. So I too share the sentiment that, like, I'm a little bit worried if we lose too much card draw and we don't get new card draw. I think card draw is very, very important for the game. That being said, I wouldn't mind some of the card draw that we have right now is to see leave the format, because
such as
or just in general, the reason why is because I think some of the card draw that we have is like hyper efficient and you don't even really lose too much tempo playing it, or it's like not interactable in any way. So I think like Rabbit is extremely efficient. It's always gives you at least 2 cards. It's like impossible not to end the body on top of it. Prince John is very difficult to interact with and can be very unfun to play against. I think Trends on the other side kind of goes under the radar a little bit because it only goes +1 in card advantage, but it does that at like barely any cost. So I also so I think some of the stuff that we do have isn't super healthy. While other stuff like, I don't know, Finders Keepers, I would say that's card where I'm like, I'm okay with that existing. It provides card advantage +2. But it's inkable. It's also fine, but it costs you quite a bit in tempo to ever get off the Finders Keepers. And I personally would like most colors to have more access to card draw, but to have that card draw be less efficient than, for example, Rabbit and some of the card draw engines we had until now have been.
Sure, yeah. And I do think we'll still have some card draw cards, such as like Doc, we'll still have Genie, we'll still have Finders Keepers, like you mentioned. But yeah, we're not going to have a lot of the staples that we've seen. Well, we don't know, right? But I'm assuming, we can see Rabbit's probably going to go, Friends will probably go. I mean, the whole Hyra mention that got banned anyways. So, but yeah, that's another example of like super efficient card draw, right? Like it's very unlikely that Prince John's going to stay. But there are a few things here and there, like Sail is a good card, but I wouldn't play that just for the card draw, right? Because like you're basically we want to ink another card, so you're not really going up on cards. But stuff like sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, it's these cards I'm talking about now. Like these aren't necessarily card draw cards, but like something like Vision of the Future, stuff that allows you to dig more. I think maybe we could be transitioning to more like search cards, maybe not something as powerful as like what Ariel was, but we'll still have Vision of the Future. Well, maybe we'll have more cards that will dig for certain things, but I don't know. Yeah, sorry, continue. I interrupted you.
Just in general, I don't really like to refer to stuff like Sail as card draw. In general, a card that just gets you one card or draws one card, it doesn't generate card advantage. It doesn't really give you more options. It's just like replacing itself helps you not immediately run out of cards, but I mean, I think in most games they usually refer to as cantrips, which probably is a Magic term as well.
It is, yep.
And yeah, so cantrips aren't really card draw to me.
Sure, that makes sense. Cool, yeah. So that's everything for this building section. Again, if you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. We are now going to move over to the slideshow to take a look at some Set 8 deck lists. So yeah, take a look at the first deck list. This is actually an Amber Sapphire deck list by Decandio, who now actually works within Ravensburger. And the idea of this deck is it's very much built around the new Sapphire card down in New Orleans, the 6-cost uninkable Sapphire Song. I may have misspoke last episode where I said this was a sing together song. This is not a sing together song. I knew it wasn't a sing together, but maybe as I said it, I might have just said sing together, because if it was sing together, it'd be a very, very good card. But yeah, just to remind the viewers, it's look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal a character, item, or location card with cost 6 or less and play for free. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So the idea of this deck is you play it's like 20, you play 26 cost characters, pretty beefy characters, pretty powerful characters for the most part. You also play the Prince Naveen, which has Singer 6, and when you play it, allows you to play a song with cost 6 or less from your hand for free. So the 2 best openers in this deck, the first one, you can do like 1-drops, you can do like Popsicle or Kit, then you can play Tipo or Sail to ramp, and then you play Prince Naveen into down in New Orleans. You've got 26 drops. You've got a pretty decent chance. Like if you have the opener, your opponent's going to struggle to really be able to compete with that. But this also has a second line. You can notice the Kick Cloud Kicker, so you can play the 1-cost Kick Cloud Kicker on turn 1. Turn 2, again, you can do Sail, you can do maybe Ludwig von Drake, and then turn 3, you shift the 6-cost Kick Cloud Kicker onto the 1-cost, and since Kick Cloud Kicker is a 6-cost card, you can then use that to sing down in New Orleans and try and get a more powerful 6-cost card. So, after just explaining the general concept, Moyen, how powerful, I guess, do you think this is? Yeah, first of all, I'll ask you, how powerful do you think this is if you can, like, get it off? But then the more important question is, how consistent do you think this is? If you're crunching maybe some rough numbers, how often do you think this is going to pop?
So it definitely is powerful if you imagine this turn 3 Naveen plus 6-drop board that you'll be encountering when they do find this. A lot of these 6-drops also draw a card or replace themselves with the Gaston or the Robin Hood. I like that it has an alternative line with the Kid Cloud Kicker shift so Cloud Kickers kind of serves as both something to hit off the New Orleans, but also something that can sing the New Orleans on the turn 3. It has the upside of like it can also go Popsicle Bell early for like very anti-aggro opening on top of that. And then its late game threats. Its late game threats will both quest for a lot, and there's some extra immediate lore gain with the Miracle Candle for the Tamatoa. There's definitely like a lot of gimmicks still built in this, so I think it could probably be adjusted. But okay, so how often do you think we'll be able to pull this off? I think if you mulligan for this very aggressively, you should be at like around 50% to have Naveen down in New Orleans on like on turn 3, turn 4.
Sure.
On top of, but that's to actually have it turn 3, you also need to find ramp on 2, so that reduce the chance for that slight bit, and then there's also the chance of going Cloud Kicker into it. So I think you in total you have it a little bit over half of the time, which sounds like a lot, and it also is a lot, but I think the big weaknesses of how the deck is currently built would be that it doesn't really do that much if you miss any of those pieces. If you miss ramp on 2, that we know no Sapphire deck that builds around ramp on 2 really works well if you miss ramp on 2, but we are very likely to find ramp on 2 with 8 pieces. What I am more worried about is what if you have Naveen but no New Orleans, and then you have like Naveen Let It Go, Naveen nothing, and then you're or what if you don't have if you don't even have the Naveen, you have the New Orleans, but you don't have the Naveen, and then unless you also have the Cloud Kicker shift line, you also have a very weak 4 ink turn. But it's not just the 4 ink turn that's weak. It would also be the 5 ink turn that's weak, because we have how much was it? 16 or 20? That was 26 drops.
Yeah.
26 drops, but 0-5 drops. So I'm not quite sure. Like I like that this is built completely towards the gimmick. If you were to want to play this like competitively, I do think the deck doesn't quite work well enough unless it also has like an okay backup.
Sure.
Which I think How Far Ago is the first. Wait, is How Far Ago even getting reprinted?
How Far Ago is going to be set 4, but for the moment you can play it, right?
Okay, right. Okay. So for set 1 to 8, I think How Far Ago is the first card that I'm looking at.
Sure.
Because it's something that Naveen can also sing. It's something that Down New Orleans. Oh no, okay, it's not something that New Orleans can fight, but it's something that Naveen can sing. And if you miss Naveen, maybe How Far Ago bridging you into your 6 drops can also kind of give you a playable game.
It's so rough though, right? Because if Naveen is the only thing that's allowing you to sing How Far I'll Go, I guess the difference is, right, it's like, yeah, sure, if you do your ramp, you can just hard cast the How Far I'll Go as well, right?
Yes, you can either hard cast it or you just go Naveen How Far I'll Go. Then maybe you can build it around Tala as well. But the problem that definitely does arise as soon as you start to build up a backup plan is if you lower the chances or consistency for like the powerful thing that you're doing, maybe kind of the justification for playing the deck also starts to fall away. But I mean, I think this is the most interesting application of Down in New Orleans that I've seen with the Naveen, and I'm looking forward to see if it holds, like if it will hold up against at least part of the meta, and even if not, it might still be kind of a fun, decently strong deck idea to play at locals or something.
I agree, yeah. The deck looks fun for sure. One thing I do want to clarify for people if they're wondering, and I'm sure most people do know this is already, but the same way with if you do Popsicle Bell, when you banish the Popsicle to play the Bell, you don't get the ability of you to remove up to 2 damage from chosen characters. So it would be the same with the Miracle Candle. Some people might think, oh, you can just banish the Miracle Candle. Actually, wait, that you can confirm this for me, right? If you play Bell and you banish the Miracle Candle, do you actually get the banishing Miracle Candle effect or no? I don't think you do, right? No.
No, because both say banish this as like a cost,
Sure.
and none of these say if,
When
like,
this
if
is
the
banished.
item
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say
yeah.
when this is banished to
correct,
X,
correct.
then it would work.
Yeah. I think the final thing I want to point out is just like some very, like, if we're talking Magical Christmas Land here, like some of the really, really cool things you can do with this. So let's say you do the combo and you do, the best one is probably going to be the Naveen one, but if you do this the kit way, it's still good as well. I reckon the best target that you hit off of the down in New Orleans for this is, in my opinion, I think the best ones are probably the Robin Hood, the Gaston, or the Judy. But the Judy is very cool because Judy says at the end of your turn you may ready another chosen character of yours. So that Naveen that's just sang a song, you can ready that again. The kit that's just sang the song, you can ready that. So suddenly you've got a warded 2/5 that quests for 3, and now that Judy's on the board, as long as she's not dealt with, then she'll just keep readying that, right? So I think Judy is honestly like one of the best cards for you to pull off of the down to pull off of the down in New Orleans here.
Yeah, she definitely offers some nice protection. Then maybe next turn you quest for 5, re-ready 3 of your lore pips again, or you get to sing again. I think there's some cool stuff you can do. Maybe the best one or the best opening would be like Popsicle Bell, and then you go Sail Popsicle, maybe another bell, and then you go like Naveen, New Orleans, Tamatoa, get back 2 cards.
That is like
you're off to the races.
That is like, I don't know. No one's going to crunch the numbers on that, but that's going to be like a 0 point whatever % chance, right? It's got to be.
I mean, it will definitely be more likely than that, but
sure. Okay.
There's also the nice backup of if you go like Naveen, New Orleans, and you don't hit a 6-drop, but you hit like another Naveen with another New Orleans in hand. You can kind of like chain that. Yeah.
It seems like a fun deck, so I'd be interested to like face the deck and to be like, it would be funny to sit across from this and your opponent's just like, yeah, turn 3, get the 6-drop out. What are you gonna do about it? And I just put my hand out and say, yeah, GG, you popped off. You just got the combo, right? So it's a cool deck for sure. Moving on to the next one. This is actually also by the Candio. This is an Emerald Sapphire deck, and it has some cool stuff in it. There's only 2 new cards from what I'm seeing here. These the new Emerald Sapphire Go-Go Tamago with Shift 4, which can line up nicely into the 2-cost evasive Go-Go. And it's when you play this character, if you use Shift to play her, you may put chosen character into their player's inkwell face down and exerted. So this is the Let It Go effect. But suddenly you don't just have the Go-Go's to enable this bigger Go-Go, you also have the Morphs. So Morphs can enable this as well, which is pretty cool. And you've got a lot of other really good Floodborn targets for the Morph. You've got the 5-cost Bell, you've got Cogsworth, you've got Baymax, which Baymax can be shifted onto anything. But the other new card in this is the 7-cost Basil. So the 7-cost Inkable 5/4 quest for 2. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Whenever this character quests, chosen opponent discards a card at random. So let me ask you a question, Moyen. Are you seeing something about this Basil that I'm not seeing? Because when I looked at this card initially, it really didn't blow me away, but maybe it's better than what I'm looking at from first impressions. Do you think like it's quite a playable card, or do you think it's just worth something fun to kind of experiment with?
Well, so this is just a 7-drop, no shift lines.
No shift lines, correct.
What I like about it is that it has some immediate effect when you play it, so it can provide some tempo there, and then it's also a threat that goes after it. The on the play bouncing a character kind of synergizes with when you quest discard a card at random, because it might make it harder for your opponent to be able to challenge into the Basil. Sure. If you combine it with like some other removal, but I think the card looks okay, but nothing groundbreaking.
Sure, I think that makes sense. But yeah, like overall, the deck seems interesting, and it could be something worth testing out. Again, there's so many like different ways to build Emerald Sapphire these days, and I think with a few tweaks, like you could maybe take the Basil out and try something else. I can understand the reasoning to have the Basil in there though, because again, it just within these 2 color combos, like you mentioned, like there's not very efficient removal, and this can kind of be compared to Hades, where you can just like straight up remove a card. But honestly, like the biggest benefit of this Basil is that it's inkable, right? If this was an uninkable card, I think it would be way, way worse. But the fact that this is inkable means that it will help you out a lot more. But yeah, interesting deck to try out for any of you guys who want to mess around with some Floodborn Emerald Sapphire. The final deck that we're going to take a look at is Chernodog, because Chernodog, from all the reveals that we saw, it seemed to get probably like some of the best support cards. This version might look slightly different than other versions you've seen previously. And I will say straight up, myself and Moyen were kind of building this together. It was mainly Moyen who built it, but we did like... We looked at some of the previous Chernodog decks that were built, but we also took some inspiration from one of Frank Carson's lists that he built, which was an Amber Emerald Chernodog deck. And the biggest card that's kind of in here that's maybe separate from the other ones is Zero to Hero. Or from what you've seen, Moyen, do many of the other Chernodog decks play Zero to Hero? Maybe they do?
Not really.
No, not
it's
really?
It's just like this little bit of a sub-theme of where you can build around Clarabelle, and I think it gives the deck like a lot of because it just gives it this different angle of really providing the longevity and threats, which it can have without it somewhat, but it provides a lot more of that.
Sure, yeah. And what do you think are some of the best tools that this deck got, right? Obviously, we can see that the 3-cost Lady. There was another new card that we were toying around with, but ultimately it's the Jacques, which is oh, okay. Yeah, I think maybe... Okay, actually, I'll ask your opinion on this after the Jacques. So yeah, the Jacques is a 4-cost inkable 3/4 that if you've got 3 or more characters, when you play it, you gain 2 lore. So when I looked at that card, I was like, I actually felt like that condition was kind of difficult to meet. It's quite... You're not going to have 3 characters on the board a lot of the time consistently, so I just didn't really feel like it fitted in too well, just as a general 4-drop. But the card that I was surprised that you don't have in this deck is the Amber Emerald Tramp. The 2/6 that quests for 2, that when it's banished or any of the other cards are banished, you draw a card, right?
Yep.
And there's also there's a 3-cost Tramp that when you play it, you can give something else ward. So do you think that might fit in? Or again, this is the tricky thing is, this specific version is very much built around the Clarabelle, right? Which maybe if you play those cards, you can take the Clarabelle package out.
Yeah, so I kind of forgot about that Tramp.
Yeah, that Tramp's pretty good in my opinion. I think it's quite a good card.
I think you probably want to play a few counts of the dual color 6-drop Tramp in this. You could... so right now, I guess you could make room at any of like the 1 and 2 drop slots a little bit, maybe got the Surfer Stitch for if you want to build this at home. But I think the Tramp that gives ward is very much underwhelming. But okay, so in general, I think there will be a few different ways to build this. You don't have to build this around the Clarabelle, although I do think it provides a lot for the deck. And I think the new 1-cost Lady the deck's got is incredible. It's like a huge upgrade to the Lady that the deck used to play. Which was like the uninkable 1/2 that sometimes...
I hated it. I hated that Lady. Yeah, I did not like that card.
Yeah, I think that must have been like your least favorite card.
I think so.
In that deck.
Yep.
But yeah, this one has more willpower. Still has the threat of questing for up to 3. Can trade a lot more efficiently. I think that Lady, to me, it's one of the best cards that we did get in the new set. And then also the 3-drop Lady, of course, is very, very efficient paired with any 2-drop, and also improves the theme of like the 0-0 Clarabelle quite a bit, right? It plays into that theme very, very synergistically. But yeah, the new shift Tramp, I think, also probably deserves a slot in this. And depending on what removal is being played in the meta, could work out very, very well. Although while we have like Brawl and Sisu, it's not a guarantee it makes it into the list.
At worst, it replaces itself though, which is definitely still still
Yeah, I
quite
mean,
notable.
so it does at least replace itself, but if you lose too much tempo while it does that, then
Sure.
it doesn't really matter that it replaced itself because you already lost the tempo, lost the game.
Yeah, I guess the other thing to point out here, which maybe it's honestly not that relevant, but in terms of like Rapunzel targets, there's a lot of cards around the 2-drop slot that are 2 willpower rather than 3 willpower. However, I think if you just land your 1-drops and they're kind of sticking around, I mean, let's just talk about Rapunzel for a minute in general, right? Even if you like heal it for 1, it's fine. You're still like it's okay. 2 is good, and then 3 is like the dream. But I think getting the heal for 3 in this deck is maybe a little more unlikely than maybe some other versions. But I'm sure you've got the Daisy, sure you've got the Nalas, but you're probably going to hit that more so in the late game, right?
It's also you don't need all of your characters to be insane for Rapunzel. As like, okay, for example, this one has like 4 Daisies, 3 Nalas. As soon as you play one of them, this will be a huge threat, no matter if you have Rapunzel or not. As soon as your opponent exerts the characters into this with like something that has less than 4 strength, you can immediately punish with Rapunzel. So a lot of the value with Rapunzel is also just how your opponent has to play differently just because the card exists. There's some lists, like if you play this without the Clarabelle, I think there's some lists that play more of these 1-drops with 4 willpower, like 4th Nala, maybe some Little Johns, which makes the Rapunzel even better. But even with the deck like this, Rapunzel is an incredible card.
Sure, yeah. And final question for you in this list. What are your thoughts on like Chernodog decks in general against Diablo decks, right? 'Cause the best answer in this is probably Kick Cloud Kicker. The Go-Go Tamago is an evasive that can kind of contest. But besides that, you're just kind of racing to beat the Diablo most of the time, right? Like you don't really play answers for the Diablo. I think the main goal seems to be that you just ignore it, you do your own thing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, a lot of the time you have to go to race the Diablo as quickly as you can. And you can do so very, very quickly, to be fair.
Sure. Yeah, cool. Well, that's all of the decks that we have to talk about today. But we do have another card we're going to mention. And it's Beyond the Horizon. So we talked about this card last week, but I wanted to bring it up again because we were discussing it, Moyen, and you were talking about the potential of how powerful this could be with either, like Amber Steel or Emerald Steel. Emerald Steel kind of pairing it with Prince John, and Amber Steel just pairing it with the Singer cards, right? So you can get this out quite easily. So yeah, tell me your thoughts on this. Like, do you think this is one of the most powerful cards to come out of the set potentially?
Maybe. I mean, there's also not that many cards that I was like super impressed by. And to me, this is just one of those cards that's like hardest to evaluate. So one of the cards I'm most curious about how it actually develops. In Emerald Steel, you mentioned the pairing with Prince John. In Amber Steel, I think the pairing with You Have Forgotten Me is quite interesting, where Post, Beyond, plus the You Have Forgotten Me, you can get them to very, very low hand size. And there's like a huge... you definitely know, but
I know.
There's a huge difference. Like the difference between 3 cards and 1 card in hand is like much bigger than the difference between 6 and 3 cards in hand. So at some point... Like, okay, so there's usually an amount of cards in hand where a lot of decks, if they have this amount of cards in hand, they can kind of function well and keep the card draw coming in some sort of way. But then there's this threshold that you can cross where as soon as they're on like 1 card in hand, suddenly their deck completely stumbles and doesn't quite look like a deck anymore because they don't quite have enough options in hand. They can't really keep the loop going and respond to your stuff. And they will kind of just be at the mercy of their top deck. And this card is especially difficult to analyze with Whole New World in the format as well, because Whole New World kind of seems like the more powerful card. But there's still some stuff that Beyond can do that Whole New World couldn't do. Because Whole New World always had the drawback of your opponent will be on 7 cards after you do this, where Beyond can be used both to draw you some new cards, but also to like actually mitigate the amount of cards your opponent will have in their hand.
Sure, yeah. I have a feeling that maybe this card might excel in this like weird set 8 meta before rotation. Maybe, I mean, it's weird to say. I'm thinking maybe even more than post rotation because it depends on how much card draw stuff is gone. Because if there's a lot less card draw, then maybe people will actually commonly have 3-4 cards in their hand, and this card has some less pop off potential, maybe. But then a whole new world might stay, might go. We'll see. But yeah, you're getting my cogs in my brain turning, Moyen, thinking about, you know, playing Amber Steel, but you just pop a You Forgotten Me in there. Maybe you play a couple of Bare Necessities, and suddenly I'm still playing hand control decks. And I've got all the singers in there as well. I've got like removal songs and stuff. So this is definitely interesting, and I'm curious to hear how everyone else is gonna, you know, if you got any cool ideas of how you want to utilize this card. Do you want to talk about this a little bit maybe within Emerald Steel as well? Because of course it's a lot harder to sing this song in Emerald Steel than it is within Amber Steel, because Amber Steel you got the singers. But in Emerald Steel you've got access to the legendary Ursula, which could make you sing this twice, which I don't know. Listen,
yeah,
it's pretty good with Prince John if Prince John's on the board as well, right? So you'll make them discard, let's say 4 or 5 cards, they draw, they do it again, you're drawing a lot of cards all of a sudden. But maybe that's like super overkill. Maybe that's a super niche scenario. But judging by the general cards that Emerald Steel plays, like that's probably a possibility. So like, how do you see the power level of this card in that deck comparatively to Amber Steel? It's definitely weaker, right? In a sense.
Yeah, probably. It's like there's the niche application of sometimes you can sing it twice, maybe with a John on the board to draw like 3 more cards. But also it just has a lot of cheap discard triggers, right? You after Beyond, maybe you can already hit them with like maybe you can sing Beyond once and then hit them with a double sunshine.
Yep.
It's definitely a little bit more difficult to set up. You might need like a Pete or a Diablo plus a Muses to be able to sing this well. But I think the ceiling definitely is also there, just being able to keep them on low hand size.
For sure, yeah. And it depends on your decks as well if you have like any filter tools, because there's a 7 cost on Inkable. Like, people know how it feels sometimes when like a whole new world is just sitting in your hand that feels dead. This is gonna feel giga dead sometimes, like giga dead card. So yeah, but I guess that's how they balanced it, right? Like, it's a 7 cost uninkable card at times, and it's gonna just sit there in your hand. So, you know, I'm excited to try it out in some decks as well. I'm more curious to try it in that Amber Steel build because it sounds a little bit funky. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, yeah, so that was it for the deck lists. I know there was only 3, but again, like it's still early days. We're still finishing off like set champs and stuff like that. I will actually be going to my first set championships of set 7 this Saturday. I wanted to go and say goodbye to everybody in my locals before I head over to Germany, but luckily a lot of them are going to be coming to the UK Games Expo event as well. Of course, we'll say this next week before we actually go to the UK Games Expo event, but if any of you guys are planning to go there and you see myself and Moyen, please come up, please say hi. We don't feel like, oh, I can't talk to those guys. We love to meet you guys and hear from you guys. And yeah, just in regards to set 8 deck lists, let us know down below what you guys are cooking up, if you found some sweet new combos. I always like to try and highlight decks, like very, very new decks, very interesting ideas. For example, like the Candios list, it's like very different from anything we've kind of seen. Amber Sapphire hasn't been played that much, but at the same time, like, I kind of nearly encourage, as I like to call it, deck tweaking, right? Like, I like to encourage, if there's a lot of meta decks you guys have seen from set 7, add like 1 or 2 of the new cards into it for this set, and if you can give like good reasoning for it, like that to me sparks like super interesting conversation, and seeing reasoning why, okay, we'll cut some cards that we kind of know are good already to try some new cards. Maybe they're really, really powerful. Maybe you're just kind of testing the idea of it. For sure, let us know down below, because I love to explore more ideas, for sure. Moyen, any final thoughts as we round off the episode and we're coming into the UK Games Expo? Will you make it to any set champs? Is this the first set you've played no set champs of, or did you miss the set 6 one as well?
Actually missed set 6 as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this season I was actually planning on playing some, but now I'm still on vacation, which is, I hope the audio quality is still fine. But yeah, this is just from my laptop on vacation, so I couldn't attend this weekend's set champs either, and I'll only be traveling back on the next weekend. But I'm very much looking forward to the expo, and not just for the Lorcana part. I really, really love board games and all card games. So yeah, I can't wait for that, and we'll see you guys next week again.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I'm really excited for once I make my way over to Germany. You know, you guys might see some pictures on Twitter of, you know, myself and Moyen in some finals of some set champs like that. I mean, it sounds a bit silly, right? But it really motivates me when I go with a lot of people I know. Like, you know, maybe if we've got some weekends free, okay, let's both go. We're not doing anything. Let's just go to a set champs. Let's go. I'll be.
Also,
go ahead.
Just in general, I do think being in the same city also opens us up to some content that we weren't able to do before. So maybe we can do some more like live game content that we weren't able to do before. So Podcana might be more than just. I mean, we have done a lot of videos in the past as well, but recently it's kind of just been
the pod, right?
A pod per week, and I think it might develop to be an extra video every now and then.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. Not looking forward to have to get, you know, German set championship promo cards instead of English cards, you know, but won't even be able to understand the cards. But no, it'll be fun. And yeah, just thank you guys again for all the support. Sometimes I feel like we don't say thank you enough, but yeah, it means a lot as always. And yeah, if you see us at UK Games Expo, be sure to reach out to us. And if not, if you're watching from another region, thank you so much. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. If you guys liked it, be sure to leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There is a video version of this available over on youtube.com/@podcana podcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Twitters are @Kawatech_CG and @Moyen_HS. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.